So programmatic advertising is very interesting. What is that? So the way advertising works in general, we're talking about offline advertising. Let's talk about newspaper and print. Primarily, newspaper and print was always sold through salespeople. So you had a publication, had salespeople that went to businesses and looking to sell ads and things like that. So imagine that happening in digital. The same thing happened in digital. You had salespeople, you had publishers, and the salespeople were trying to sell advertising inventory to those buyers. So imagine programmatic, which is automated. It's a platform initially that buyers are plugging into with their servers and their self-serve platforms. They're no longer buying from salespeople. So the entire ecosystem kind of flipped on us back in 2015, where in digital media in the US, they were no longer buying through salespeople. It was all happening through kiosks, basically self-serve platforms. So these kiosks were portals that agencies and brands had, and they would program in their buys, and they would look for inventory types, and they'd put in those orders, and those orders would go to the inventory sources through servers. And there are no salespeople involved in that. And so from that standpoint, it's very, very efficient. You could buy on the spot. And from a yield standpoint, the publishers, they weren't cannibalizing their own yield. They weren't selling things in advance at a cost per thousand impression or CPM rate that they end up regretting later on in the year. So it was initially on an auction basis, so programmatic advertising had auctions. So you'd have thousands of buyers bidding for that one impression in real time, and those bids would happen within 200 milliseconds. So these types of auctions, we host roughly 50 billion of those a day. And those transactions happen within 200 milliseconds, and those are bids that come in from buyers. And if the buyer has the highest bid and other weights based on the quality of their creative, that kind of thing, they win the impression and serve it on the spot. So imagine spot buying. So if you have a last minute campaign, having to deal with salespeople is nearly impossible to get that campaign published. Now with programmatic buying, you can just do it on the spot and you can buy immediately for a last minute campaign. So it makes it very, very efficient. You really don't have to pay commissions to salespeople because they're not salespeople anymore. So it makes it a lot more sustainable from the ecosystem standpoint. Now from a cost basis, from a company standpoint in the public market, the beauty of this is we're now not on a variable cost structure. Most companies in media are on variable cost structure. They have commissions and salaries and things like that based on the revenue. So you tie back some sort of a cost to a revenue ratio. Now for us, we're on a fixed cost structure now. Our cost is to operate the software environment at a current cost, and the revenue will increase irrespective to that cost. So it's fully scalable at this point. Now it is much more sustainable, as I mentioned earlier.